When I first left home, it was so straight after I'd finished Year 12, which is the end. I don't know what the equivalent is here, but sort of finished high school. And Mum and Dad were really keen for me to go to university, but I hadn't really thought about it. So I just enrolled in a course that I thought would be
fun.
Sports media. I don't know what I was thinking. I like sport, but I don't know. And I would even then, I think I was 18. I was really thinking, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Particularly as I was going to Canberra, which is the arse end of the world, if you ask a lot of people in Australia. So moving away from home wasn't too big a deal. It was sort of more leaving my friends rather than my family, because it was only sort of 2 hours away. And I was living with my brother as well. So I was moving in with my brother, so that wasn't too much of a problem. So, and, you know, not very, you know, we were sort of brought up to be fairly independent, so it wasn't too big an issue. The worst thing was leaving my girlfriend, because she, at the time, my ex-girlfriend, because she was going to Newcastle, and I might have been young and stupid, but I knew that long-distance relationships don't work, so I knew that when I was going this direction, she was going this direction, that was it, and that was the end of it. So that was more what was difficult rather than leaving the family. Yeah. But I remember I moved to Canberra in the middle of summer, and Canberra's out in the bush, and there's lots of it's like a bush, they call it the bush capital, and there's just big expanses of of forest and gum trees in between the city, and that particular summer was super hot, and it was the one before that there was a huge Canberra bushfires where lots of people were killed. But there's always bushfires raging around in summer. And the day that I moved away, there was a bushfire going on. So we drove down through all this smoke haze, and it was so hot. And I went to this little hot box apartment. Mum and Dad sort of put all our stuff there, all my stuff, had dinner, and they left. And I was just sitting out the back in the smoke, thinking, oh, what's going on here? Australia in the summertime.
Yeah.
In the most possibly... So Canberra's a fairly boring city, but I was in the most boring suburb of the most boring city. Bushfires all around in the middle of summer with no air conditioning.
And how was your relationship with the nature in general?
I don't know. That's an interesting one, because I feel like there's a real. It's hard to explain. There's a lot. The example that I use is there's a lot of space in a lot of sort of classic Australian music. So bands like the Triffids and Nick Cave, a lot of sort of underground sort of 80s music. It sort of started coming out in the 80s, sort of indie rock or alternate rock scene. It's music that kind of there was lots of room in it. It wasn't, in England you'd hear these sort of fast, busy beats and jagging guitars. But there's a song called Wide Open Road by the Triffids which kind of sums it up. And it's big soaring guitars, and it's, sound of room and of space, but there's also a bit of menace in it as well. And I think that comes from it's a fairly harsh environment, and so the explorers or the first colonisers, they had a lot. There was a lot standing in their way. Nature was throwing a lot at them, a lot of spaces and not a lot of water and fires, and it wasn't lush English countryside. It was harsh, and so I noticed that a lot in the Australian psyche as well. Like, people are a bit fatalistic, and that comes through in the music. That's something that I really relate to when I hear that in music, sort of a bit of fatalism or harsh beauty or something. So when I'm writing songs, that's kind of what's in the back of my mind. It's pretty bloody hard to achieve, but that's what's in my mind, and I love that about Australia. You sort of feel a bit more in touch with your environment, definitely more so than living around in London, which is obvious because London's a big city. But even living in Sydney, I'd used to get bushfire smoke coming over and making the sun go red at sunset, or see bats flying home in the dark, or in summer you get pretty much every afternoon you get the southerly bluster coming through. If you've had a hot day, it's almost guaranteed that about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening you're going to get this wind coming up from the south, or a sea breeze coming in from the east, and it's going to cool everything off. So if it's a really hot summer's day, so if everyone's sweltering, sitting out the back having a beer, and then you can feel the first ticklings of the breeze coming in, and then it starts building up and southerly bluster comes through.
So in London is difficult for you?
Yeah. I hate not being able to. It's also dependent on where you live, I suppose. But where we live, for example, at Brockwell Park, I love going to Brockwell Park because you can see, you're at the top of a hill and you can see the open space, and you can see a sunset, and you can see a few miles off in the distance. So you feel, I don't know, it makes you feel more connected to your environment when you can see a lot more of it.
Yeah, I mean, here I think in London it's like you have more difficulties like to enjoy the sky as well.
Yeah.
I remember like in Australia I really was enjoying like, everywhere you could see like the sky, which was always blue.
Yeah.
And here is.
And I don't know what the light is different. There's different light. The sun is really strong in Australia, and I think it's because, I don't know, it's proximity to Antarctica or something, and reflection, or if the atmosphere is thinner down there, or if the fucking hole in the ozone layer is, I don't know, if it's situated over it, I don't know, but the light seems, the air seems, it doesn't seem to stick. Even if you're in a big city, it's still quite bright.
So is the weather affecting your mood here?
Yeah, I've tried not to let it. Everybody talks about how rough and how hard the winter is and was and all that, but I just heard so much about it, and so I prepared myself for it. But I didn't feel. I mean, it was obviously crap. You can't say the weather was particularly good, but I loved when it snowed. So that's like the second time I've ever seen snow, and it's a completely different thing for me. But the weather definitely affected my mood. It sort of brought it down. Obviously, it's understandable. I mean, everybody brings it down, but
the snow was for you nice, or like?
Yeah, it was a highlight. Yeah, except it ruined my boots. Paid a lot of money for those boots. Yeah, the snow was beautiful. But again, maybe it comes back to beauty in the harshness of nature.
Yeah.